Movies.
That's good. That's a good take.
Yeah?
Yeah, I like it.
The end. Credits roll. I don't know about y'all, but when I was a kid, I cared very deeply about things that were scary and weird, because I, like you, were probably really scary and weird. And now I'm gay. I had hair in my mouth. When I was a kid, I was like a spooky dumb kid who really liked spooky dumb things, and then frolicking along in my childhood innocence, I discovered a goddamn book called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I'm sure you are aware of if you clicked on this video or have done even the most cursory of Wikipedia search. So, you grew up experiencing scary stories to tell in the dark, and there really is no words to describe what that is like. What this is like to see when you're a child, or perhaps this one. It's digitally here. I have no idea which image I'm going to put up. Point is, it's scary as hell. Those books are scary as hell, mostly because the illustrations are like to children's drawings as like medical experimentation is to dentistry. That was a really weird way to say that, but I hope you understand what I mean. These books not for kids. What these doing in the kids section? Said every kid in the world, and then that kid was very excited, and that kid was me. I was super stoked that there was a book out there that actually delivered on the goddamn spooky. This again. Jesus Christ. This. So, it was like a big part of my childhood, big part of my adulthood, still a big part of me in a non-nostalgic way. I legitimately believe that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark was not something that I was nostalgic for, but rather something that was a rite of passage for me, like as a child. When I saw Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark for the first time, I was a different person after that. And now I'm gay. It was a lot more than just some stories in a book. It was an experience that took me from my childhood and put me precisely into the unfortunate real world of grotesque, horrible violence that would then become the late 2010s. It prepared me for a world without care. It was a transitory experience, one might say, having nothing to do with myself. And because of that, it had like tremendous influence on a lot of other people like me, and it's also kind of got this like sort of kinship thing where you can kind of say, hey, that thing is kind of like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Do I like that thing? I do like that thing. And I was happy with that. I was fine living my life like that. And of course, if I ever wanted to pull out my old dusty copies of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, I could easily do so with the confidence that even as an adult, I'll fucking hate it. However, because there isn't a god, someone has decided to adapt Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark into a feature film.
Some people believe if we repeat stories often enough, they become real. They make us who we are. That can be scary.
Eat it, Harold.
Okay, so the thing is, like, with Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, if you've ever read it, you know clearly that these are a collection of pretty non-linear stories that have nothing to do with each other, and they're all based on folklore. So it's like, what if we made a movie adaptation of just some folklore? that part there doesn't really hold an awful lot of water. The stories themselves don't really need to be adapted into anything, because they already have. They've been adapted a million times. It's folklore. Stories come from that. Kinda. So basically, what we're going to be making a movie about is the illustrations. Again, but in the moving world. When moving into making a Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie, you kind of get this thing in your brain where you're like, yeah, okay, what exactly could they possibly adapt? And literally, it's just the art. They're taking some pictures and making designs out of it. This is all things that I thought while the movie was happening on screen. Unfortunately, because I didn't find the movie very interesting.
Tell me a story. Hey, what's going on?
Tommy's missing.
Okay, so 2019 Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. If I was to talk about it completely outside of that context, which I feel like is fairly important, I would call it a movie that's got some pretty genuinely scary moments. It's got some cool creature design, stuff that I haven't seen in movies before. I feel like the period setting is kind of wasted. I think the script is, I would call it very bad. The screenplay, as it reads on screen, is really pretty bad. The directing is mostly pretty good, and the editing is atrocious. And overall, so basically it's a horror movie. My point is, I guess if you've never heard of this, then, you know, you're not going to have the context in your brain. You're not going to have the anticipation, the expectations that come with this particular book. But me, my generation of people, my people, oh, we know about this shit. And we went and saw this movie the other night thinking, finally, but also why? But also, finally. They're adapting the book that I've waited, and then you see it. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm just gonna kind of go list form. Things I don't know. That's what I'm gonna call it. The list of things I don't know. Number one, there are not a lot of scary stories in the movie Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. The movie felt that it could take, like, in its opinion, the 5 ultimate scary stories and put them in the film. That being Harold, definitely Harold. They really pushed Harold. The Red Spot, me
Tidoti Walker.
Me Tidoti Walker. Thank you, PA. That's anonymous.
The haunted house, kind of.
The haunted house and the dream.
And the dream.
The dream.
Yeah. And also, technically, the Hearst song, because that was.
Oh yeah, kind of a Hearst song was the score.
Movie. Yeah, it was. Yeah. That's it.
Was that literally all?
It's literally all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, but the big toe.
Oh,
big toe.
Yeah, big toe.
Well, as we talk about this, it seems like there are more and more, but really in the movie there's like 4, so clearly one can see that this wasn't really an anthology of scary stories. It's ironic in a movie called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark how the story of the movie does not matter, including the micro stories within the story that are supposed to kind of be about stories from the books, but they're not actually. Like, Harold in the movie is not the Harold story adapted into this. It is basically they took the image of Harold, which is this boy here, this good boy. They took that good boy and they put him in the movie, and then they made a weird racist jock from the 1960s hit him with a baseball bat until he got pissed off. Part 2 of, I don't know, the story of the goddamn movie don't matter. What? Huh? What? I'm sorry? I was sitting in the theater, a person here, and all of us kept repeatedly looking at each other throughout the movie, with this kind of face. Horror. but not the scary kind. The story is as follows, in as simple a way as I can put it. There's Goosebumps the movie and Stranger Things, and they had sex. If you've seen the movie Goosebumps, and not the good one, Goosebumps 2, Slappy's Revenge, or Goosebumps 2, Haunted Halloween, or I believe as the Blu-rays now just say, Goosebumps 2, they got rid of the subtitle. Not that one, where all the stories come alive and then suddenly they're like, oh god, there's all the stories. Instead it was just like following kind of an adventure where they have to face certain iconic characters from the series, and then at the end they all do a hug and it ends. It's kind of like that, but also kind of not. It's also kind of, you know, a bunch of kids in a period piece running around on their bicycles. And there's a threat, and no one believes them. Stranger Things. This movie is also kind of about the Nixon presidency, and also could be about the draft and the Vietnam War? What? At the end of the movie, I'll just give a little minor spoiler, not a spoiler to anything that matters in the movie, like, you know, the scares, which are all spoiled in the trailer, sorry y'all. To spoil minor thing about the story, one of the main characters at the end of the movie decides to stop being a coward and stop dodging the draft and to just go to war. The Vietnam War. The one that was really contentious. Oh!
Tommy's name was in the book. There's no way it's actually connected, right? Okay, what if what happens in the book is exactly what's happened for real? Oh my god. Aggie!
Stella!
Listen, you're in the next story. We're reading it right here.
It's a corpse looking for her missing toe.
Part 3 of whatever the fuck I'm talking about, why it edited like that? Is the movie sick? What's wrong with it? Okay, so there's kind of this one specific moment in the movie that, like, really baffles me, because this movie, it clearly has this directing backbone. Andre Overdahl is directing, he's a great guy, he's a great director. I don't know if he's a great guy. Damn, I regret saying that. Anyway, he's a great director, and I don't really understand. There's the one specific moment where they're doing the thing from the dream. Now, you will remember that as being this. It's in the movie. It's also in the trailer, so you've seen it. Sorry, it's over. Cancel for you. But the fun is still to be had if you just, I don't know, somehow miss the trailer. All of them. Every single picture, it's on the poster. So yeah, there's the scene with that, where it's like, the idea is that it keeps randomly spawning at different ends of hallways, and like the character is running through this maze of hallways and keeps stumbling into the thing from the dream, and it's like scary, oh no, I'm never gonna get away from it, and then finally it hugs him and laughs, and then its stomach sort of does like a assimilation thing where it just like grabs his body and just goes, and then it burps and farts. There's a shot in this where they are going, like, there are wide shots down the hall and they're very scary. Some of them are kind of out of focus, some of them are kind of concealing the monster, and you know that is rule number 1 of having a monster in your movie is maybe conceal it a little bit, because that makes it just slightly scarier when you don't know exactly what you're seeing until the right moment. Well, this movie decided that the right moment is the second shot, where it is in the middle of this very intense scene, and then it just cuts to a close-up of the monster. From head to toe, we see the entire thing of this weird CG monstrosity, and it does a little giggle. The rest of the scene is lit red, but for some reason they decided to do this when it was lit, like, with white light, like daylight balance. So you just see it plainly, like it's in a warehouse. And then it cuts back to the scary scene.
It's literally just a pan up, you see every part of it.
Why did we do that? And that's just one thing. I mean, the other thing is, like, the movie is constantly cutting to things that do not matter. Like, cutting to research bits that build to a larger story that really doesn't ever come together, and when it does come together, it comes together in like a really dumb way. Like, we find out that the main villain of the movie, which is the creator of all folklore, Lady in Darkroom who writes book, she once saw a mercury go into water and decided that mercury is bad, and there's a plant that's doing a bad to the people with mercury, so they tell everybody she's crazy and then lock her in a dark room. So naturally we have to interview the whole goddamn town, just everybody, about this situation. Go to not one, oh bitch, but 2 libraries. We are going to research the shit out of this. Now I know you're thinking this is very scary. Yes.
Oh, but it gets scarier because they decide that this advertisement for the public library system isn't nearly good enough. We need to find a mystical, magical old black woman.
During the time when the Mercury woman had the accident, the thing,
She was a slave in her house, and
Yeah. She was
a slave lady then.
She was the little girl.
The mystical black lady.
Right.
So now I know you're thinking, okay, mystical black lady, now that sounds like a little bit of a racist trope. Well, what if I told you that also there was a bully who was a comical racist who went around beating up the cars of minorities and then calling them slurs in close-ups, and then cut to the person they're saying, the reaction, which is like, oh, you said they were turned into a scarecrow by Harold.
Yes.
Noted way that story ends in the book.
They caught Scarecrow.
Yeah, remember how the end of the Harold story is like really intense, where in the book, right, where it's like, and then Harold was on top of the roof laying out bits of flesh to dry in the sun of the guy he killed. Well, in this one, he magically makes the guy vomit up scarecrow juice until him become Scarecrow.
And then I guess
that's how scarecrows are made. Okay, so fuck this list. Let me tell you what happened, okay? Because, like, here's how things are going versus how they actually are. Because what you think is going on is the liberal media lying to you. Here's what actually happened, okay? So, Guillermo del Toro is gonna be all over this. Like, everybody's gonna be pointing at Guillermo about this movie and saying, oh, Guillermo, you did it. Everywhere's gonna say, from the genius mind of Guillermo del Toro. But he didn't really do anything here. He produced it, he kind of had an idea for the story, but he did not write any of the 6 screenplays. He was none of the 7 screenwriters that were involved, and he didn't direct it, or edit it, or star in it, or anything. He produced it, but it was also produced by CBS. Guillermo del Toro or CBS, which one are they going to put in the trailer, right? From the genius mind of CBS television, here comes
art house distributor.
Noted
CBS.
art house distributor, CBS. Guillermo del Toro is, like, involved, sure. Producers are very involved, but there are 7 of them. There are 7 producers, so he is one of 7, which means he's sharing roles with 7 people. He had a story credit, but so do like 10 other people, and he did not write a screenplay. That was these 5 people. And so basically, over the course since 2013, when CBS acquired the rights to this movie, they have been reworking it and retooling it and kind of changing it up to try and make it into something that they can actually sell. And today, that thing is Goosebumps meets Stranger Things with the art from Scary Stories, because that's still kind of scary. Now, I do believe that Andre Overdahl and Guillermo del Toro probably worked fairly closely with those creature designs, because they are very cool. They are really cool. They are the thing you saw in the book come to life, kinda. That part of it seems like there's a lot of love and care in it. But when it comes to the story, it is all over the place. As far as the editing goes, it seems like there was this sort of thing going on, where they wanted it to sort of be this way, lean towards an R rating maybe, kind of lean towards a more middle to adult audience, and then somebody was tugging them back towards children. Let's over-explain everything constantly. You mean you put the book back? Yes, I put the book back, but just a moment ago we saw her put the book back. Why are we still talking about it? Every single scene is the exact same like this, where the whole scene is geared around explaining not only the major plot, which we already clearly know, but every prior scene and every scene that will come. Everything is explained constantly the whole movie. And I know you're thinking, well, when did they fit in time for scares if they're just explaining everything? They don't. A friend of mine once said that bad editing is kind of like... What did you say?
Editing, it's one of those things that you don't know what the problem is, but you sense that there's a problem.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know if this food is bad, but it tastes funny.
Oh yeah, that's a good way of thinking.
Sarah Bellows' book, where the stories write themselves and it all comes alive.
Am I glad that there's a movie based on this thing that I grew up with? I guess. That's kind of cool. That's validation from corporations on a book that everyone involved with is dead. It's cool to see these pictures that scared me when I was a kid now moving on the screen. But as far as like seeing the stories translated, looks around, a real quantity of the great stuff that's in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, or its preceding two sequels, are they in the movie? Not really. There's some stuff, but not really a lot. And so you end up going, well, is this even Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark? Or is this just a weird, like, fan-fiction-y universe retelling of some of the stories from the book, but just the images? And then you're like, oh, am I just watching like a bad horror movie that is tricking me? And yes, the answer is yes. And of course, obviously, I'm not one of those people that's like, you know, this movie hurts me in a nostalgic way. The books exist. I can still read those if I so choose to. And also, I do acknowledge that the stories in those are also underwritten and also not super good. And this is underwritten and not super good. I actually think it's overwritten, but not super good. So basically, I'm just getting the same, not really. So essentially, like, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the book, is the book that launched 1,000 imaginations, where reading that, people said, I want to make stuff like that feels like that looks like that gives me that experience. And I want to do what this book does, not just co-opt its aesthetics. And like Guillermo del Toro, his name is all over this movie, but when it comes down to it, any movie that he's made on his own, that's just his movie, is a better Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark adaptation than this or anything else anybody's gonna try and do. And it's very much that way with a ton of filmmakers who care about this in the same way. And when you get a movie that you could literally just Google image search Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, grab the first 3 images you see and just use the name and those images to make a movie, you kind of got lost somewhere along the way. And I can't help if the people that maybe even made this or care about it in that way have made that same connection of, well, people anticipated this Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie, they finally get it, it's nowhere close to what they want, but that's fine because I'm going to continue to try and just make things that feel like that, because that's what people actually want. They don't want to just see these characters on screen. They want to feel that way. They want something that makes them feel in the way that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark does. And that is a much rarer commodity and something that a lot of studios are unwilling to allow to happen. So on one hand, you know, I kind of want to say that these books like deserve better or something like that. But really, like, it is what it is. This is how these things tend to go. And really, we're never going to get a movie adaptation of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark that was going to do everything we wanted it to do. But the best we can hope for is to, like, read those books ourselves and enjoy them for the reasons that we enjoy them and be inspired by them for the reasons that we are, but also look for the things that feel like that and support those things. Support those things that are actually creatively trying to capture that weird magic that's there, because you're not going to get it from this. There's a documentary on Prime that I think is free, also called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, that talks about the books and where they came from and how they've influenced culture, and somehow that's a much better Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie than this is. And that's kind of all I want to say about that, I guess.
The Jangling Man is coming.
Hi, hello. You might remember me from a video that you just watched. It was that one that was behind us now in time. You should subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'm gonna tell you the damn truth about stuff. It's not true, I'm a horrible liar. You should like this video if you like it. I hope that you do. That would be nice. I would love some validation. I've been feeling very, very, very upsetty spaghetti. And also, if you could support me on Patreon, that would be wonderful because god damn it, I am poor. I'm in this like shithole apartment. George, you came to visit me this week and you're staying on my couch. How big is my couch? It's like a little bitty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, my apartment sucks, right?
Yeah.
I hate it here. I hate it here. I can barely pay for this shit. Support me on Patreon to keep me from being, homeless. Shit.